Hey, Cherie here, the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And before we get into this incredible episode featuring Hillary Allen, I want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by The Feed. The Feed is the largest online marketplace for all of your sports supplements and nutrition. You can find over 250 brands there. So all the products that you know and love, Cliff, Martin, Goo, they have them all. They also have a lot of products that you may not have heard of, but The Feed is made for athletes by athletes, and that means that they try and approve all of the products that are offered in the marketplace, so you can trust that whatever you buy is going to be high quality. And as an incentive to go shopping at The Feed right now and maybe even get a jump start on your holiday shopping, The Feed is offering you $80 credit on the website. All you have to do is go to thefeed.com/forward. Yes, it's / and then the word forward. And you can claim your $80 and start your shopping. I wanted to add a big thank you to The Feed for their last 4 months of sponsorship. It went not only to this podcast, but also to Keeping Track and Hear Her Sports, two other excellent shows that you should definitely check out if you aren't already listening to them. We are the Women's Sports Podcast Collective Keeping Her Forward, and we're just really thankful that The Feed invested in women's sports media. And again, you can go shopping at The Feed and claim $80 in credit by going to thefeed.com/forward. That offer will remain valid through the end of the year. All right, now on to the episode.
This whole idea of coming back, I also had to let go of that because I didn't want to everyone's like, oh, the comeback, and I'm like, no, because I'm different now. I'm never going to be the Hillary that I was before all this happened. And that's okay. And I actually discovered that I'm stronger than before.
Women's running. Women's running stories.
Hi, my name is Hillary Allen, and I'm an ultra endurance athlete.
More specifically, Hillary Allen is a professional ultra-distance trail runner, and she's among the best in the world. This is especially the case over steep, technical, mountainous terrain. Hello and welcome to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner, your host and producer. And the story you're about to hear is all about resilience, pushed to the edge again and again. Hillary's journey is truly remarkable, and I'm really excited that you're here to listen to it. If you aren't familiar with Hillary's racing career, it's likely because most of the racing she's done is in Europe, where the style and terrain of the racing suits her, and it's just what she really loves. Hillary is also the author of the book Out and Back, where she chronicles in very fine detail exactly what led people to want to call her journey a comeback. Although more accurately, you'd have to say comebacks, plural. But like Hillary said, she doesn't like the word comeback because she's not the same as she was before this journey began. And to my mind, a big part of that is because she is a deeply thoughtful athlete. She absorbs the lessons that she learns, and she grows and moves on. Fortunately for us, she is also open to sharing the wisdom that she's gained. So get ready. In this episode, Hillary brings us all the way up to the present, which very significantly includes her running the UTMB, which recently took place at the end of August. A little explainer here if you're not totally familiar with UTMB, and that stands for Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc. It can refer to both the collection of races that take place over the course of a week in late summer in the Alps, with all of the action based in Chamonix, France, or it can refer to the UTMB race, which is the premier event of that week of races. This race is a full circumnavigation of Western Europe's highest peak, which, yes, is Mont Blanc. And while the UTMB race is the most prestigious of the events of the week, and it is also considered one of the most challenging ultras in the world, the other races in that series are incredibly tough and competitive as well. And you're going to hear Hillary mention one of those events, the TDS, in her story. Suffice to say that the UTMB Festival of Events is the largest, most competitive collection of ultra events in the world. And now back to Hillary. When she isn't racing up and down the tough technical terrain in Europe or elsewhere in the world, she's training and racing on the tough technical terrain near her home in Boulder, Colorado. She relayed her story from there just after returning from her time in Chamonix and the UTMB. Hillary tells her whole story in her own voice. And now let's get to it. Here's Hillary.
As athletes, it's like, and I think people, it's easy to focus on the negative. I'm someone who's very goal-oriented and, I'm hard on myself. And so when I kind of fall short of my goals or expectations or even perceived expectations that others have put on me, then I get a little bit frustrated. And to be honest, I train really hard, and I'm confident in my abilities and I know what I'm capable of. And so when I fall short, it's frustrating. But, I think it can be dangerous if I focus on that too much. And I'm someone who really likes to journal or work through things in my own mind to kind of figure out what's going on. And I did that a lot the week after UTMB. And I was kind of trying to focus on takeaways. I think the biggest takeaways that I found was, one, how powerful and positive it is to actually be part of a team that believes in you. No matter if you have a bad day, they're still going to kind of be there and support you. And the other big takeaway that I had was just with my whole entire athletic career, I don't know if I need another lesson in resilience, but I was taught yet again that how incredibly resilient I think we are as humans, and specifically how resilient I am. I've been running ultramarathons since 2014, and I started out with sky running. And I was starting to do the 30-mile, 31-mile races, the 50Ks. And in these races, these sky races, you climb in about a 30-mile race, you climb about 12 to 14,000 feet. So you're climbing that much in 15 miles, and then the other half is downhill. So usually these races are very technical. They go, the most direct way up the mountain, back down again, up again, down. And it's it was so fun. So I've been racing in Europe every summer since I started running professionally. And, I've been running since, on a professional level since 2015. So I love Europe. I love the style of racing. I just love the endurance scene over there. And in 2017, when I would pack up my bags and move to Europe for the summer and kind of do these races, because a lot of the sky running races are in Europe because they're just very steep mountains and they don't really believe in switchbacks like we do here in the United States. So they can just go up, literally straight up the mountain. And in 2017, I was actually having one of my best seasons. I was winning the skyrunning series for the ultra division. And one of my last races, the second to last race of my season, I was in Norway doing this race. And basically at the halfway point, I stepped on a rock, which gave way underneath my foot, and it kind of propelled me off of a mountain. It was a place where I couldn't really catch myself. I was just on this ridge line. And I ended up tumbling and falling about 150 feet. I mean, I was ragdolling down this mountain when I fell. So I was moving so fast that both of my shoes flew off of my feet. And miraculously, I mean, obviously I lived, I'm here, but I had broken 14 bones in this accident, and I was on a scooter. So both of my arms are broken. I had surgery on my right foot. And so my left foot, which I had also broken some bones in that foot, was the only one I could kind of hobble on. So I was very limited in mobility. I couldn't walk for 3 months after this accident, but it was a life-changing moment, and it shifted my athletic perspective and career, I was basically told that I would never run again because of some of these serious injuries, specifically with a ligament injury in my right foot. So yeah, it's kind of every athlete's nightmare of like, I'm literally the strongest I'd ever been, saw all this potential for where I could go, and it all changed in literally one instance. And yeah, it was scary. I didn't really know what to do and where to start. So I had a great PT for the physical therapist and like a gym that I could go into, and like that became the full-time job, honestly. Like I was in there every day, if not twice a day, and doing like really simple things like mobility, like plopping myself on the floor and like doing leg lifts because I couldn't stand, like I did this blood restriction therapy because I couldn't bear, I wasn't weight bearing. So I was trying to do every little thing that was trying to like promote healing in my body. I focused on, good nutrition, like things I needed because, and that's also another piece. It's like athletes can fall into like, well, I'm not exercising, like I need to eat less. Like absolutely not. I was like hungry all of the time because it took so much energy for my body to heal all of these injuries. So I was just really trying to focus on those things, but also at the same time focusing on these other aspects that gave me joy outside of sport or, being an elite athlete. Because I didn't want my whole entire identity wrapped up in, oh my gosh, I'm not going to love myself again unless I can get back to this, performance level. That wasn't going to make me happy. Then finally, like over a year later, when I was starting to like run again, and I actually ran my first race. I ran another ultra. I won my first race back, and I was seeing all of this like progress and like, oh my gosh, like, okay, I can run again. And I'm actually, I had let go of this idea of being an elite runner, but somehow I had found my way back there again, which I didn't think it was going to be possible, but I believed in myself and I tried. And then once I was finally starting to get some momentum and like put like another big race on the calendar, this was probably like 20 months after the accident, I was running a routine kind of run by my house. I slipped on some ice because it was kind of snowy, and I felt a pop and a crack, and I fell, and I had broken my ankle. And it was just kind of like the ugly tear cries of like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do this again. And I had to go through another recovery again where I had to have surgery, and I couldn't walk again for, I think it was like 2 months this time. Yeah. So like after this ankle break, I hit rock bottom, and I didn't really know what to do. But, I guess I had some confidence from my previous experience and my previous, accident of like, okay, well, I got through that. Like I know what to do. So I kind of went into recovery mindset again, into like the depths of, rehab and PT. And during my recovery from my ankle break, I actually wrote my book. I did a TED Talk, and I was like talking openly about how hard it was to recover, how many demons you face. And, it's a conversation that I think many professional athletes don't really lean into, but I was really wanted to face it. And, injuries are a part of running. Injuries are a part of sport. Injuries are definitely a part of being a professional athlete because you're trying to get the most out of yourself, but you're on this like tightrope. And it's a very fine line between what's going to make you fit and what's going to make you injured. So I got back to it. And 6 months later, I ran this race, TDS, which is at the Festival of Mont Blanc. And it was the longest race I'd ever done. And I placed second. Like I was 10 minutes behind the first woman, which in a race as long as 94 miles is like pretty freaking close. And so it was amazing. And so I was, again, like super hopeful. Then April of 2020, right, literally the day, 2 days before my book launched in April, I actually had to have surgery on my left foot because I broke it. And it was so badly broken that it required surgery. And so, yeah, I basically kind of had to go into the depths of recovery. And thank goodness I had written a book and recorded an audiobook, because I had something to listen to remind me that I could also recover from this too. Yeah, I needed a reminder that was actually me that went through that, because you quickly forget, it's like, it's almost like grief. Like the further that you get away from like the like deep grief of losing a friend or losing someone that you love, it's almost like a distant memory. You don't really remember how hard it was at first. And that was kind of how I felt. And it was a good reminder to kind of like read my own words, or kind of go back in the journals where I had written down like my affirmations and like the feelings of despair that I had, and also the little moments of triumphs that it inspired me to, bet on myself once again.
Greetings from Evergreen Podcasts. We're rolling out a listener survey, and we want to hear from you. The information in the survey will help us gather statistics and in turn make our shows more appealing to advertisers. I know most people don't like ads, but this is one of the only ways our shows make money and help keep their lights on. We promise it will only take a few minutes, but the impact on our podcasts will be tremendous. As a token of our appreciation, we'll randomly select one lucky participant each month to win an exclusive merchandise package from Evergreen Podcasts. Head to evergreenpodcast.com/listenersurvey to help a show and possibly get some free stuff for doing so. We can't thank you enough for the support. Now back to the show.
Yeah, this whole idea, like betting on myself and believing in myself. And, that's super pretty to say. And like, it's like, awesome. Like, believe in yourself. You got this. But it is so hard to do. And it is something that I mean, even now, it's like something I still have to actively work on. But this, like what I'm talking about is like believing in yourself so much that you won't, that I didn't give up. Like I kept on doing those boring PT exercises even before I could run, even before I like for months and months and months, when I had no idea if I would even run again. I was trying to focus on what I could do each day to get myself a little bit closer to that goal. And it all started with believing that I could, and believing that there was some hope out there that I could get back to doing something that I loved. And even if it didn't take the form of elite running, that I was still going to try anyways. And yeah, I like wrote affirmations and like literally every day. And some days that felt so stupid to be writing believe in your best athletic days ahead of you when I was, scooting around on a scooter, or, my foot was so painful that I could hardly walk. But yeah, it was something that I think it's like planting a little seed. It's like you have to keep watering it, and it seems just like a dirt, but then eventually something starts growing and you have to keep, taking care of it. With the amount of injuries that I have had and the amount of like rehab and mobility and constant like strength work that I need to do to deal with certain imbalances that are just there because there's some structural damage in my body where my body has like, things have shifted, mobility has shifted, and that's important when, you're training and running. And so I do a lot of cross training, but strength training is something that keeps me very, very healthy, and a lot of body work because there's, like I said, imbalances just based on a lot of the injuries, and your body's very smart, so it compensates fairly well. But strength work has just become such an important piece for me. Also, off seasons, taking time to rebuild instead of just constantly depleting. And for me, the bike has been an incredible asset. I discovered cycling when I was not really a kid who cycled that much. I was always just playing in the dirt and running around. But I discovered cycling in 2019 when I broke my ankle, and I specifically gravel cycling. And now it's just become such a tool, and I love it so much. So a lot of my ultra distance races at first, they're very technical, and I've done some very hard races that they might be shorter in distance, but they run kind of similarly to this 100-mile distance that I think a lot of Americans or just people in general are kind of attached to this nice round number. But throughout all of my racing, I had never run 100 miles. And so one of the courses that inspired me the most was this course UTMB. So it's Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc. You tour around the Mont Blanc, crossing through 3 different countries. It's an insane track. All in all, I'll kind of just give some stats. So all in all, the UTMB was 108 miles, circumnavigating, like I said, the Mont Blanc. But you climb about 31,000 feet, and you descend that much as well throughout those 100 miles. So there's really not that many running, flat sections. This course, you kind of run through little towns or villages, and then you're climbing up these mountain passes, and then you're descending into another village for an aid station to get food and water, and then you're kind of doing that on repeat. So I think it's basically, it's on trail. It's mostly on single track trail. The tallest point in the race is just under 9,000 feet. So you're not going terribly high, but the lowest is about 1,000. So you have some pretty big climbs to do. And there are some road sections to connect these towns, but it's, for the majority of the whole run, it's on trail. So there's rocks, there's dirt, there's some pretty technical places, you're running all on rocks, but it's all very steep. So it's just constant. There's a lot of up and down motion, but there's a lot of side to side motion. And, the longer you're out there, it gets a lot harder to be agile on the trails. So this race was something that I've wanted to do. I used to live in France, and so there's this almost a feeling of home associated with the Alps and those trails. But last year, I attempted it, and I had to stop halfway through, or a little bit shy of halfway through, because during the race, I thought I had kind of re-broken my foot, and from kind of a misstep on a rock and some barbed wire that punctured through my shoe. Coming into it this year, it was really important for me to finish the race because I know how hard it was mentally to have to walk away from that. And so in just true fashion, something that I love, I went there early. I went there about 3.5 weeks early, and I trained on the course, and I was feeling really good. I'd felt kind of the strongest I had felt, physically speaking, in preparation for this race. Mentally, I had done a lot of work with my sports psychologist, and I was feeling supported. I had my mom come out to watch the race, and my 2 good friends were there to crew for me. But I think, even though you can come into to races and ultra distance races so prepared, things can always go wrong, which is kind of why I love this sport. And my UTMB, it was, I don't know, it was a shit show maybe at first. But basically I had this, it's a night start. So it starts at 6 p.m. And so you run through the night, and that comes with all sorts of challenges because the Alps are notoriously wet, and it can snow and it can be cold. We didn't have really any of that weather, but my stomach, for some reason, kind of didn't cooperate. Something I haven't really experienced this exact problem, but basically just every time I ate something, I felt like I had to go to the bathroom, and, you're running and like, there's really no place to duck off the side of the trail, and it keeps happening. So, then I basically was trying to nurse my nutrition. And then, if you're not eating enough, muscles start cramping. So that was basically the first 50 miles of this 100-mile race. And I came into the halfway point thinking like, this is it. Like, I don't think I can continue. Like running 50 miles in about 11 and a half hours, I was off my pace. I was cramping. I had only eaten like 600 calories. I was just empty, and my mind was like spiraling. I just was not happy. But I took about an hour there to regroup, and I ended up digging myself out of a hole, kind of like, mentally speaking and physically. First and foremost, during that, I think it was a little bit shy of an hour, but I was eating. Like, I had to eat because I was in such a hole calorically, and like my muscles were cramping. And of course, you're in a bad mood when you just can't eat and you have no energy, and you still have like 50 more miles to go with like an insane terrain and climbing. So that was what I was doing. I actually called my coach, which is something that I don't do. And he was like, yeah, he's like, Hill, you can keep going. Like, just to try to get myself into this mindset. But, it wasn't even that straightforward. Like, I knew even when I sat down, like, I was so embarrassed because I wasn't having, the day that I'd planned, but I knew deep down that I didn't want to quit. And so it took me a bit, like, I just needed time to just like kind of be in my own head, to not listen to those like negative thoughts or those thoughts of judgment, and then choose to listen to the ones of saying, okay, but you still want to keep going. So let's find a way to keep going. And so then with every piece of food I ate, I was kind of like telling myself that. And then basically I just ate, and I told myself that, this is maybe not the day you're hoping for, but let's still, try the best that you can. And I told myself, it's just like one step after the other. Like, that's kind of how you can get it done, and break it up into digestible chunks. I had run the course before, so I knew what was coming. So I just told myself to get from, aid station to aid station, and just focus on that. And I fell back to 30th position, but my stomach started to respond again as that was moving. And so that was, with every kind of progress that I felt with that, it was a step in the right direction, like mentally as well. And then I ended up working my way back to 14th. And in fact, as I entered the streets of Chamonix for the finish line, I out-sprinted a woman for the finish line. So I finished a 100-mile race running a 6:30-minute mile. At first, I felt really, disappointed, because I had come into this race with the confidence that, if I had a good day, I could, place top 10. If I had a great day, I could podium. And I still know that that's what I'm capable of. But like, I had such a special moment I switched teams this year to Brooks Running. Previously, I was with the North Face, and it was a new team. And I think I was putting a little bit too much pressure on myself. At the finish line, like 50 people from the Brooks team, from like the offices and the athletes, were there at the finish line to welcome me in. And in fact, it was my birthday when I started UTMB. They were singing me happy birthday at the end. And I think it was one of like the most special team moments I've ever had. That was amazing. And then I think, I feel hopeful for the future and really proud. This was a race that I had never experienced, that like depth of a low, and everything within me like wanted to quit, but there was something there that had to be stronger, that I listened to, that told me to kind of find a way and problem solve and keep going and believe that it could get better. Yeah, that's basically what I did. It wasn't so pretty. The race took me 29 hours, and I think I was battling my mind and my stomach for about 17 of those. And it was kind of amazing to look back on my times and look at how actually of a strong of a second half I had, even with what had happened the first 50 miles. And that to me is really encouraging. I think it's really cool. It makes me curious about, other races and just also in general about like what is possible for what we can accomplish if like things get rough,
What we can accomplish when things get rough. Hillary's story has a lot to teach us about that. And I'm excited to follow what comes next for Hillary Allen as she takes her curiosity and her ever-evolving cache of resilience out on new adventures and challenges. Up next for Hillary, the finale of her season will be the 100-miler at Ultra Trail Cape Town, which takes place over the weekend of November 25th. That will most definitely be an exciting race to follow. And I have no doubt Hillary is going to be doing exciting things for a long, long time. And I want to thank Hillary so much for sharing her story. I especially want to acknowledge her willingness to talk through her trauma one more time so she can share the power of her resilience. Her fortitude is, it's really astonishing. And so is her belief that this is something we all possess, because we all do. And it's a powerful message and one that I think about often now. And I hope it's a message that you can take with you too in whatever challenges you face, be it in running or somewhere else in life. I'd been waiting to feature Hillary on the podcast for quite a while, and the stars aligned recently. We were connected through our mutual sponsor, The Feed, so I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Mia at The Feed for connecting us. Also, I encourage you to read Hillary's book, Out and Back. It goes into a lot more detail about her accident and how she got to where she is today. And of course, I will link to Hillary's book in the show notes, and I will link to her TED Talk. I will also link to all the other ways you can keep up with Hillary, including the podcast Trail Society, which Hillary co-hosts with Corrine Malcolm and Keely Henninger. And of course, you'll also find in the show notes links to our social media, and I would love for you to follow us as well. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And I thank you for being here now. I've said it before because it's always true. We love making these stories, but the power of them comes in you listening. So yeah, thank you. And of course, I do not make this show by myself. All of the original music you hear comes from Cormac O'Regan. He also does the scoring of the podcast, and he comes to you from his studio in Cork, Ireland. April Mariner does all the design work for the show, the website, the logo, and the social media, all of it. You can find April at bonfirecollaborative.com, and April comes to you from Truckee, California. And yes, I am Cherie Louise Turner, your host and producer. And as always, I'm coming to you from my studio closet in Somerville, Massachusetts. And until next time, I wish you healthy, joyful strides forward. Women's running. Women's running stories.
Hear Her Sports is a podcast for everyone who loves stories by and about women striving to improve and make a difference in their lives. I am your host, Elizabeth Emery, a former professional cyclist. In every episode, I introduce a female athlete or woman in the business of sport through a thoughtful conversation about who they are and the terrific work they're doing. My guests and I explore the glorious and frustrating issues in sports, history, equity, training, nutrition, and so much more. Join us for inspiration, for community, and for love of being a strong, athletic woman.